Well, good afternoon YouTube, and welcome along to another episode of Silver Fox Travels. Today, as you can see, I'm on the Cub, and it's getting to the point now where I've had it for a year. So I thought I'd do a first birthday review on the bike. I'll let you know how it's been performing and generally what I've liked about it and what I've not been so keen on. And perhaps a bit of a warts and all review after a year. I think we'll start off with the good points, I suppose. Always start on a high. And first of all, I suppose the best thing I've liked about this bike is the fuel economy. Over the year I've been getting anything up to about 96-97 miles to the gallon, which you've got to agree is pretty good in this day and age, especially with the price of petrol the way it is. Now that I've had it for this length of time, and it's got a good 2,000 miles on the clock and then some, everything's loosened up and it rides really well. This 350cc engine has got it where it counts. It has plenty of pull when it needs it, struggles a little bit up some hills but not all, and generally speaking it's a very good bike to ride in that respect. The seat, which I got after I bought the bike, is actually a couple of inches lower than the original standard seat, and that's made it so much more easier for me to put my foot down on the ground when I come to a stop. The seating position is actually very good too. It's I'm not leaning forward particularly much. I've got my feet at a relatively sensible angle that's comfortable for me, and the reach to the handlebars is pretty much where I'd like them to be. I'm not resting on my wrists, and I'm not straining my back. And of course these bar end mirrors are actually very good. There's obviously, because they're bar end, they're further apart than the ones on stalks, so I'm not seeing quite so much of my elbows and shoulders, which means I have a better view of what's going on behind me. And from that point of view, from a safety point of view, that's very good, because I can keep a close eye on anybody that's creeping up behind me that I wasn't aware of before. The brakes have bedded in really well, and they now have a really good bite to them. Relatively progressive. They do stop me within the space that I want to stop, which is pretty much all you want from brakes. So long as they're there when you need them, that's all that matters. Now as for acceleration, well, it's a 350cc single, which isn't renowned for its breakneck speed or its huge acceleration rate, but it'll get you up to 50 miles an hour relatively quickly and smoothly, and it'll pick it up and take you up to 60 fairly soon after that. It sort of runs out of puff a little bit round about 65, I can get it to 70, but I wouldn't want to keep it there for any great length of time. This bike's not designed for motorways, not really. If anything, I would prefer to stick to A and B roads, and that's about its limitation for me anyway. I know other people will take them on long trips up and down the motorway, and why not? Let them enjoy it. Personally, I don't think it's the bike for that sort of thing. I've got another bike for that anyway. Now, I've not done too much in the way of late night riding, so I can't really tell you very much about the headlight, but what I have seen of it when I've been out, when it's getting, when it's coming in a bit duskish, is that the light throws a fairly good puddle of light in front of you, enough to be able to see where you're going. Doesn't light up the world like a great big LED might, but it's adequate, certainly adequate for what I want it to do. Also, the bike's very, very lightweight. Altogether, it's very easy to move it around in a car park or shift it in and out of the garage or whatever I need to do. It's obviously not one of these adventure bike behemoths that you see. It's just a good all-rounder. That's the best way to describe this bike. It's a nice little all-rounder, perfect for commuting if you're going to work or to college, perfect for little pootles along country lanes like this, and ideal for nipping down to the shops and that sort of thing. Absolutely perfect for it. Okay, let's have a think about some of the things I've not particularly liked about this bike. Well, there were the initial teething troubles, as I mentioned before. The speedometer had to be replaced at 600 miles because it wasn't registering correctly, and it's now developed a thing where in the odometer section here in the middle there, it gets all misted up and doesn't really look too good. You can't really see what it says. At the moment it's okay, it's quite clear, but when it gets a bit warmer it mists up quite badly actually. Some other bits and pieces I've not been too happy with. The front forks tarnished very, very quickly. I don't know if it's lacquering or what it is that's on there, but it didn't last very long, and the bottom legs of the front forks are quite badly furred up, and also the fasteners for the mudguard on the front, where they fasten in at the centre of the wheel there, they've lost a lot of paint and they're starting to tarnish as well. The paint coating that was on them was very, very thin. It must have just come off in the wash. And of course I'm having to keep an eye on them so that they don't start rusting. I have seen the odd bits of rust here and there on this bike, of which I'm not too happy with, just generally in corners and places where, after just a year you wouldn't expect to see it. But it's a budget bike, so I suppose you've got to expect that kind of thing. Mind you, if I was just starting out and I've just paid $4.5 grand or whatever it is that I paid when I first got this bike, and that was all I could afford, then I would expect it to have, lasted a little bit more than that. The Hitchcock's pannier rails that I got when I first received them, they came with a set of black bolts for fitting them, which was fine. I fitted it as per the instructions, it all went well. But then I noticed after just a few months that those bolts had turned to rust, absolutely properly rust. You'll see from this photograph, and I was quite astonished at that, because I would have thought, well, I'm led to believe at least, that the quality of products from Hitchcock's is supposedly really very good, and they kind of let it down a little bit. But anyway, that's been sorted. I got in touch with Hitchcock's and they sent me some stainless steel ones, which I fitted, and well, that particular problem has now gone away. It shouldn't have been there in the first place though. Another thing I did on the bike when I ordered those, or rather when I mentioned about those bolts, was I ordered some relays, a set of relays, in order to replace the very badly gummed up ones which came with the bike. That white grease, unbelievable amounts in there. Took quite a while to clean it all out as best I could. I'm sure there's still some in there, but I got as much of it out as I could. And now whether that's made a difference to the bike, I couldn't really tell you. I've not really noticed anything different. I only got them because I heard a lot of people were having trouble with them, so I thought, stop that problem before it starts, and get the relays. They were only, I don't know, just under about 45 quid altogether. So anyway, I've got the Hitchcock's relays in there as well now. Sounds great though, I must say. For a single cylinder thumper, it does have a lovely sound. So anyway, I've saved the worst till last actually, and that's the issue I've had with the gear selector. And when I first got the bike, it was suggested that I move the gear selector up a notch on the spline, which would resolve a lot of problems with false neutrals. Very bumpy road this, by the way, which I did. That wasn't a problem. That was very straightforward to do. I didn't have any problems doing that. I loosened off the frame bolts, dropped it down so that I could get to the spline bolt, undid that, moved it up a notch, and bolted everything up, tightened it all up, and jobs are good. And that worked fine. And it did pretty much destroy any suggestion of any future as false neutrals, although the odd one has snuck in now and again, but it is very, very rare. But the biggest problem has been this issue with regards, when I've got it up to well, top gear, and I'm doing, I don't know, 55, something like that, and I can be tootling along, as you've seen in my videos, and all of a sudden there's a little bit of hesitation in the engine. It's not a cough and splutter, it just feels like a hesitation, and then all of a sudden it's dropped out of gear, it's in neutral, the engine's revving its head off, and I've lost all power. So the only course of action for me to do at that point is to pull up, and what I've taken to doing is, when it happens, is to switch everything off, give it a moment, and then start it up again and go from there. Now that's something that hasn't been resolved. I've had it back to Eddie's at Tadcaster. Now they did, as you saw in that video, they did go through it. They did do the best to find out what the problem was. He took it out for a test ride. He was gone for quite some time, and he said that when he got back, he said he just couldn't get it to do it, no matter how he tried. He said he tried too lightly putting it into top gear, tried really crashing it into top gear. It just wouldn't do it. It would not repeat the problem. So he said all he can do is wait for it to happen again, I suppose wait for it to get to the point where it's happening regularly, and then he can actually see what's going on. Now, he did say he had another customer with a similar problem, and you know, he said if he finds out what that problem is, he might be able to let me know. But today I've not heard anything, so I'm assuming that that problem may not have been as similar as we thought. But yeah, that is a major issue, and I have to say that when something like that happens, I know the bike's covered under the manufacturer's warranty. I know the warranty is for a good 3 years, and it's supposed to cover all that kind of stuff, but it knocks your confidence. I don't like the idea of going on a really long run out on this bike, especially if I'm with a group of people. If I'm with Anthony and Daniel and we're riding along in the countryside up to Hawes or whatever, and it starts playing those silly games, it's going to totally ruin the day, not just for me but for everybody else, as it very nearly did with that trip when I was with James. So yeah, thankfully we were on our way back when it all started hiccuping. But yeah, that's the way it is, I suppose. And when, of course, when your confidence has been knocked like that, you wonder whether or not it's a good idea to keep the bike, or whether you should perhaps think about moving it on and going for something else. So let's try and sum it up then, what I've thought of this bike over the last 12 months. Well, it's been a great joy. I've really enjoyed riding it. It's been a lot of fun. It really is a lively little bike. I've been all over on it. I've thoroughly enjoyed riding it. I've found it to be very comfortable, found it to be very economical. That's certainly been a saving. I think the best way to describe this bike to anybody really is fun. It's a simple word, one word description: fun. It's been a lot of fun. Now the question remains is, do I keep it or do I move it on? Well, that's a question for another time. Well, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this little bit of video and my 1 year review of this bike. And I'll finish off in the usual way by saying, look after yourselves, look after the people around you, and until next time, bye for now.